Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sharon Noble, Director of the BC Coalition to Stop Smart Meters. Welcome to the show, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Jim.
A story in the Vancouver province by Bob Mackin pointed out that 88,000 faulty meters were removed by Hydro. What's the real story behind this, Sharon?
We don't know. Hydro isn't telling us. What we do know is that in other places like Ontario, there have been many faulty meters, in addition to the fact that many of the meters are being put on in places where they can never work remotely. But 88,000 faulty meters are going to be removed, and Bob Mackin was trying to get the story behind it. What are the faults? Why are we having to pay for them? Are they going to be covered by the warranty? And Hydro's refusing. They say they cannot provide any information about the warranty coverage because that's confidential. They came out with a press release yesterday saying that these are not really 88,000 faulty meters. These are meters that have already reached their expiry date and have to be recertified by Measurements Canada. That's crazy. It cannot be true. New analog meters are certified for 12 years during their initial period. The smart meters, if I recall correctly, were granted at least that long before they had to be recertified by Measurements Canada. We believe that these are, in fact, meters that probably are ready to be replaced because they no longer work properly. As we discussed last time, I believe, the industry has admitted, and we've suspected this for a long time, that the actual lifespan of these smart meters is far less than the 20 years that were used in the business case for the amortization of the costs. In fact, in 2010, one of the things I presented to John Horgan was when he was energy critic, was the fact that these are just plastic computers and that people were the industry people were saying that the lifespan really is closer to 10 years than to 20. Well, now that these have been put in place and are working, many of the places are finding that 5 to 7 years is a more accurate lifespan projection. And an industry expert from one of the utility companies testified before the U.S. Congress about a month and a half ago that, in fact, 5 to 7 years is the lifespan for smart meters. So my best guess is that 88,000 faulty meters, in fact, are having to be replaced because they've outlived their useful life. This means that over the amortization period of this business case, 20 years, we could be paying up to for 4 smart meter replacements. This is money we can't afford, and this is money that if anyone at Hydro had done their due diligence, we would not have spent to begin with.
Sharon, who pays for that replacement?
We do, of course.
The customer.
Well, according to Bob Mackin, one of the questions he asked was who is going to be paying for this replacement? Are they under warranty? And Hydro refused to answer. They said that the warranty information is private between them and Itron. So I think that means, yes, we will pay for it. If they won't say otherwise, I think it's safe to assume that we will be paying for these.
Sure, it's the old, when you ask a cop, did that happen? They say, I can neither confirm nor deny. The answer then is yes. Because if it's a straight out no, then the answer is no.
As a matter of fact, this lifespan expense is something that none of the parties are addressing. Adrian Dix, as you know, a week or so ago, came out with a hard-hitting article that was in the Globe and Mail where he hit Hydro's business plan, and he said that they had used inflated numbers for energy theft, which was obviously true, and it was true at the time, and nobody really said that much about it. The fact is that no one really knows how much energy is being stolen by grow-ops. They admitted several times they really don't know, and it started off at something like $12 million, then it went to $100 million, then it went up to $700 million in theft, as they needed it to support their business case. And Adrian Dix hit them and said that he believes that they used inflated numbers to justify their business case. Now, I believe he's right, and I'm very grateful that he's finally coming out with some of this stuff, but he's missed some of the other costs. He didn't hit anything about these short lifespans. This is much bigger. than the energy theft figure. Neither has he hit the fact that these meters have to have better cybersecurity measures built into them. The software has to be improved. The entire grid system has to be strengthened, because we're going to suffer attacks, accidents, just as there is happening all around the world. Did you hear about, just at Christmas time, how the Ukraine, a big section of the Ukraine, was attacked, and they believe it was by an Iranian bug that was put into the system as kind of a test, and it knocked out many, many areas of their electrical grid. This can happen here, and the experts keep saying that we're going to have to spend billions of dollars to fix the grid. Why isn't anyone talking about this? Why isn't Adrian Dix talking about this? And in their financial reports, Hydro has no contingency funds set aside for any of this. So when we do have to start replacing the smart meters, and when we do have to start building the cybersecurity facets into the software packages and into the grid, it's going to come as a big shock and a surprise for everybody, and our rates are going to jump immensely to cover these unplanned for costs.
Well, of course, Ted Koppel has written a book about the cyber faults in the system, saying all of North America could be blacked out and it could take years to get the electrical system up again. You said there's possible ways to protect ourselves right now.
There are a lot of experts, including former hackers, who get together and who try to break the grid, try to find their way in. Most of them are saying that these smart meters are the most vulnerable point. They are the easiest way for the hackers to get in. There have been examples where hackers have got into through the smart meter and have taken over homes. They went in through a refrigerator, in one prime example, and worked their way into the home's computer system and stole all sorts of passwords to their bank accounts and everything. This is just a hacker, probably a teenager playing around. We don't know. But the experts are saying that the smart meters are the most vulnerable section of the grid, and it's the likeliest point for an attack to enter into this, a virus to get put into the system. It could already be in the system, and it's just waiting there to be activated. And yes, Ted Koppel is reporting what many experts, like Petraeus, like Woolsey, the FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, even CSIS have warned that once this grid goes down through an attack or through an accident, it could be years, which means that millions of people will die. We won't have food. We won't have clean water. We won't have heat. We will be back in the dark ages, and it will take a long, long time. We need to fix it before it happens, not afterward. And no one, not the federal government, not the provincial government, not Adrian Dix, none of the MLAs, none of the MPs who've been recipients of all this information have done anything. We can't find anyone who's even responded to this.
Is that disappointing that so many people are crying wolf and yet no one's paying attention?
Yep. I think it's disappointing and it's scary. This could happen anytime, and we have no preparations. And Jim, what's so frustrating is that people have known that this is going to be happening, and it's happening elsewhere all the time. Monthly we get reports out of attacks on the grid where they think that it's just China or Iran or North Korea feeling around, seeing how it's going to work, just attacking small little sections. There are hundreds of attacks monthly on the U.S. grid. We don't know how many on our grid. No one seems to be keeping track. But we're tied to the U.S. grid in many ways. So if it happens in the U.S., we're going to suffer the consequences as well. And, yeah, I think it's very frustrating, and I think people should be screaming their bloody heads off. Where is the government on this? Why is this happening? Why is it being allowed to happen?
Do you feel like Winston Churchill did in the late 30s when he kept warning Germany is rearming, we're going to have World War II happen before you know it? Everybody ignored him, and then they were shocked and surprised when the Germans started dropping bombs on everyone.
Well, and it's also like climate change. How many more people need to warn about the fact that all the glaciers are melting and that the water levels are increasing before someone decides that it's worth doing something? It's crazy. It's like people wanting to be like the ostrich and stick their heads in a hole and pretend it's not going to happen. We can't hide from this stuff. It's there, and it's almost inevitable that something's going to happen if we do not take precautionary steps. It's the same, Jim, as with all this Wi-Fi stuff. We know it's dangerous. We know it's harming people. Yet people like their gadgets too much to believe that they could possibly be harming them. You know, it's a sad, sad thing when you can see this coming down the road and we're not prepared for it.
Well, I was going to say, people hate messes and wires are messy. So, of course, wireless everything is neat and tidy, and you don't have to move the wires when you vacuum.
Well, when you think about it, there are so many advantages to being wired. Sure, there are wires, but you can do things about that. You don't need wires all over the house. You can do it in the walls. You can do it neatly. I do it neatly. You don't need that. But the Wi-Fi is slower, much slower. Gosh, when I'm traveling and on occasion at a hotel or something, I have to use Wi-Fi. I find it so extremely frustrating. It's so slow. And trustees at schools have told me that they've had to increase their IT budget significantly to add more people because teachers are finding that Wi-Fi takes so long. It can't carry the amount of data, and it can't carry it as quickly or as safely. You know, the Wi-Fi is hackable in addition to the fact that it's irradiating people. So, you know, when you look at the big picture, Wi-Fi's nuts. It just can't be justified. There's no reason for it.
Well, you said in classrooms in Europe they're using infrared instead. I remember I had infrared headphones back in the 70s when I was doing radio in Winnipeg. So, and they work terrifically well.
They're not using infrared. They're using what they call Li-Fi. It is a fiber optic cable. And fiber optic cable carries light. And this fiber optic cable goes to a light fixture, an LED fixture above the computer. And you have a little thing on your desk, like a little modem, and the light shines down on that and runs your computer. It sends the signal. It's fiber optic cable carrying the light. Now, there are concerns right now, and studies are starting to be done, that the light combinations haven't been fully tested. Blue light can mess up your melatonin levels, which means you won't sleep well, which can affect your immune system. That's part of the problem with wireless radiation. It screws up your melatonin. So many scientists are now warning that they need to make sure that the mixture of light that's coming out is safe and doesn't mess up any of your hormones. Usually the answer to that is adding other colors. For instance, I don't know if you know this on your computer. If you're reading things on your computer late at night, your melatonin level is being affected because you're getting a lot of blue light from your screen. What you should be doing is going in and downloading a program that adds a red color to your screen at sunset that cuts out that blue light, and then you can sleep well. This is what has to happen with a fiber optic light. But yeah, they're starting to use that. In fact, they had that Li-Fi a pilot project in St. Cloud, Minnesota a few years back. They put it in all their public buildings, and from what I hear, it did very well.
Now, Sharon, you also have a beef with the BC Public Utilities Commission. They wouldn't give you intervener status to talk about their meter policy at all. And then you find out they did talk about the very thing that you wanted to intervene on.
Yeah. Well, we found out the whole process with the BC Utilities Commission and Hydro and Fortis really needs to be reexamined. Hydro came out around the beginning of October with almost 5,000 pages. I think it was 4,950-page document that was very, very technical. And I only found out about it by accident on October 8th, when there was a small little article in the Victoria Times Colonist about it. Hydro has to announce it, and they did, but it was only a week before the public could make comments and ask to be interveners. I didn't have time to read all 5,000 pages, so I sent a request to be an intervener, and you have to give a reason. And the application that Hydro had submitted was for a redesign of their rate structure. And so I wrote and said, I would like to be able to intervene because I would like to be able to provide comments and arguments about the meter choice program and the legacy fees that were being paid that are so extremely high, the highest in North America. And I sent BCUC all sorts of information. Several other people also sent in similar letters asking to be interveners, and we were all refused status because the BCUC said that there was nothing in the program or in the application that Hydro had submitted to talk about meter choice fees or rates, and that and Hydro argued that it had just been reviewed in 2013 and they weren't going to do anything about it. So BCUC rejected our request to be interveners. Well, to be completely honest, I didn't read the 4,900 pages, and so I had no way to argue. Then about in December, I learned that Hydro had applied as part of its application to increase the reconnection charge for those people who have refused access to a meter to $700 to reconnect your meter. $700. It's $30 for other people who've had their meters disconnected because they couldn't pay their bill. $30 to reconnect it. $700 for those who were disconnected because they refused access. In my opinion, that is primarily those people, like myself, who have protected my analog meter. And I think that that's outrageous. So I wrote and I complained about that, and they said, no, you cannot. You've been rejected as an intervener. Then, on December 21st, BC Hydro submitted a 500-page document about the redesign, and attachment 3 of this 500-page document that I just happened to skim through were amendments to the tariff, the electrical tariff. Now, the electrical tariff is the contract that Hydro writes up, in which it primarily outlines what we have to do, what we have to pay, how we have to allow access, but it also has some restrictions in there for Hydro, telling how they have to treat people, how they can't backdate for errors beyond 6 months, things like this. And I was flipping through it because they said that this was the tariff amendments due to the rate redesign. And in the amendments were things that had nothing to do with the rates. They were redefining a smart meter. They were redefining the opt-out meter. They were redefining, which I find most appalling, BC Hydro's the requirement that BC Hydro limits its actions and is controlled by the electrical tariff. They want to remove that. That is our contract with them. If they say they don't have to live and abide by the tariff, they have absolutely free reign. So I wrote on the 27th of December and made a stink. I said, this is outrageous, that the tariff application for amendment should be a separate application, that the public should have full opportunity to intervene on it, and that I wanted to intervene on this because I thought it was outrageous. BCUC agreed to submit my application for reconsideration of my status, and this yesterday, I received notice that I have been reinstated as an intervener, but I only can comment on those two issues, the $700 reconnection fee and the BC tariff amendments. And we shouldn't have to fight like this, to have our voices heard.
Sharon, hasn't Hydro asked to have any oversight over the BC Utilities Commission removed?
Well, as far as the smart meters are concerned, they didn't have to ask. The BC government made that part of the Clean Energy Act. Just as with Site C, the BC Utilities Commission has no authority over either the smart meter program or Site C.
Oh, the two biggest programs that Hydro does.
Exactly. Why do you think they did it? They don't want anybody to know what's going on. But BC Hydro wants to change the tariff, which is the contract. They want to remove the restriction that they have to abide and be restricted by the tariff, which means they have absolutely, and this doesn't just affect the smart meter program. It affects all of our dealings with Hydro. It affects the way that they can bill us, the way that they have to give us proper notice if they're going to be removing something, or if they're going to limit something, or if they're going to back bill us. Jim, I have had so many people come to me with Hydro trying to do something to them. For instance, one person came to me, and Hydro had made a mistake on their bill, and Hydro was going to go, they didn't charge them legacy fees. Now, we know that in December of 2013, people had the option of agreeing to accept a smart meter or remaining silent, and if they remained silent on the issue, Hydro would assume they would keep their analogs and would be billed $30 to $40 a month. Some people did not agree to a smart meter. They remained silent, and they were never billed the legacy fee. And Hydro has just found them. They found several people in the last 2 or 3 months, and they went back and said, well, you never paid your legacy fee, so you're going to get a smart meter. And these people came to me, and I said, no, you never agreed, have you? And they said, no. I said, have you paid all of your bills? And they said, yes. I said, have you ever been billed a legacy fee? They said, no. I said, okay, then you go back and you ask Hydro to show you in the tariff where it says that even if you're not billed something, you have to pay it. Of course, it's not there. So then Hydro argued and said, well, you should have paid it, you should have notified us, blah, blah, blah. So I sent these people to BC Utilities Commission. And I said, you find out from the BC Utilities Commission if Hydro can pull a stunt like this. And the BC Utilities Commission wrote back to BC Hydro and said, you have to abide by the tariff. So then Hydro, reluctantly said, okay, you can keep your analog, but we're going to charge you the legacy fee back to December 2013, which is about $800. And the people got to me and I said, no. In the tariff, Hydro is limited to 6 months back billing if they made an error. And so they wrote to Hydro and Hydro argued about it. And again, BCUC said, no, you have to abide by the tariff. Now BC Hydro wants to apply or make a change where it says that they do not have to be limited by the tariff. So we would lose any protection, and BC Hydro will have complete free reign to do anything they want, even more so than they already do.
In other words, they want to remove any oversight and be able to do anything they want without any action being able to be taken against them.
That's what it appears. They want no regulations to apply to them about anything.
That's incredible.
Yep.
But of course, who wouldn't want a nice life where no regulations apply to me? To everybody else they do, but I would like a society where I am regulation free.
Sure. Well, and I want to know why BCUC didn't flag this. Why did BCUC just quietly allow BC Hydro to submit these tariff changes that are not part and parcel of the other application that they had submitted? Somebody should have flagged this, and nobody did. And after I raised the issue, still, none of the people or organizations who were interveners supported me or said anything about it. So far, I'm the only one who's raised this as an issue. But I'm going to fight for it. I am now an intervener, and the people had better believe that I am going to raise a stink about this.
And when do these hearings take place, Sharon?
They're ongoing. They started in September.
Oh.
And there is no, as far as I know, there is no public hearing. Usually, major things give the opportunity for people to attend meetings and hear what's going on. And for this particular one, for the rate redesign, I guess initially no one thought it was significant enough for the public to even be told about. You have to keep on top of these things. For instance, I just discovered something yesterday. Fortis BC, which has provides electricity to about 115,000 homes in the interior, has applied for time of use billing, and I don't think anybody knows about this. I saw that they filed on in December, something like December, I can't remember, 15th or something like that. They filed it January 6th. I can't find what's happening, whether it's been approved or not. I wrote off to the commissioner asking if it's been approved because no one knows about it. I wrote off to a bunch of Fortis customers. None of those people had heard about the fact that Fortis was applying for time of use billing. This is something where the BCUC is supposed to be protecting us, and it seems that it's not doing it anymore. And I believe that it's time for the public to demand a review of the BC Utilities Commission by an independent body. We need to make sure that things like this don't happen anymore, where things just slide by. Why aren't BC Hydro and Fortis required to put notices of things like this in bills? We get bills every month. Why isn't there a flyer in the bill saying that, for instance, Fortis is applying for time of use billing, that you can find out all the information at this website and you can make comments to the BC Utilities Commission? I don't know why this isn't required. Why should we have to look for little tiny squares in a newspaper that, it could be there any day. And if you miss it, you just don't know.
Sure, stuck back in the want ads that nobody looks at anymore.
Well, I can tell you, I hit that one about the application that Hydro put in September. I saw it October 8th, and it was purely by accident. It was a little tiny announcement in the Times Colonist, and if I hadn't read the paper carefully that day, I would have missed it. And I let a lot of the people in the coalition know about it that day, and not one of them had seen it in their local newspapers.
Probably wasn't in their local newspapers.
Well, it's supposed to be. But even if it is, Jim, a lot of people don't take the newspaper. A lot of people don't read the newspaper carefully enough. Why should it be there? Why not in your bill?
Sharon, is there a website people can go to find out more about these issues?
There sure are. As you know, we've got the Smart Meter Coalition, and it's on www.stopsmartmetersbc.com. And the health and the legal information is on our other one, www.citizensforsafetechnology.com. goddard.org. And if anybody would like to get my updates that I send out regularly, they can email me at director@stopsmartmetersbc.com.
Sharon, thanks a lot for chatting with us.
It's my pleasure as always, Jim.
My guest has been Sharon Noble, Director of the Coalition to Stop Smart Meters in BC. You're listening to the Goddard Report on TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments about the show can be emailed to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.